So today we're diving into a tool that tries to solve a problem that, let's be honest, we all have. Just drowning in information. This is Google's NotebookLM, and it's designed to be your personal AI research partner. Okay, does this look familiar? I bet it does. Whether you're a student cramming for an exam, a professional trying to make sense of a dozen reports, or, a creator juggling a mountain of research, that feeling of being totally overwhelmed is just universal. You spend all this time highlighting, making notes, trying to connect the dots, but it's so easy to just lose the thread.
But what if you had an AI assistant that wasn't trying to know everything about the entire internet? What if instead it became an expert only on the documents, the notes, and the links that you give it? Well, that's the big idea behind NotebookLM. It's really carving out a whole new category for AI as your personal, dedicated research partner.
So what is this thing really? Let's get into the nuts and bolts of what makes NotebookLM so fundamentally different from the other AI tools you've probably played around with. Google themselves call it a virtual research assistant, and honestly, that's the perfect way to put it. You feed it your sources, we're talking PDFs, Google Docs, websites, you name it, and NotebookLM becomes your own private specialist on that specific pile of material. It's not about searching the web, it's about getting a deep understanding of your personal universe of information. And this brings us to what is maybe the most crucial concept of all. It's the thing that builds trust and reliability right into the tool's DNA. It's this idea of being source-grounded. This slide really tells the whole story. On the right, you've got your typical general AI. It pulls from the vast, messy public internet. It's powerful, for sure, but it's also where things can go wrong, where it can hallucinate and just make stuff up. Now look at the left. That's NotebookLM. It operates inside a walled garden built from your sources, creating this private mini-internet just for your project. And what does that mean? It means every single answer is grounded in facts you provided, and it even gives you citations to prove it. No hallucinations, period. So this core principle, being source-grounded, is actually a pretty simple two-step dance. When you ask a question, the AI first goes and finds the most relevant bits and pieces in your documents. Only then does it write an answer based on what it found. This whole technique is known as Retrieval-Augmented Generation, or RAG, and it's the secret sauce that guarantees accuracy and builds that trust. All right, so we get what it is and why it's different. Now for the fun part. How does this thing actually work? How do you go from a chaotic mess of research to a polished final product? The workflow is just beautifully simple. Step 1, you upload your sources into what's called a notebook. Step 2, you just start talking to the AI, ask it to summarize things, find connections between documents, or answer really specific questions. And step 3, you use its studio features to magically transform those conversations into new things, like study guides or timelines. Now, the chat is where you're going to spend most of your time, and it just got a huge upgrade. We're talking a 1 million token context window. That's massive. It means you can throw enormous collections of documents at it. It's also got a conversation memory that's 6 times longer, so it won't forget what you were talking about an hour ago. And you can even give it a personality. Tell it to be a skeptical critic that pokes holes in your ideas, or a marketing strategist who only cares about the bottom line. And of course, your chats are all saved automatically. And then there's the studio. This is where you turn all that thinking and analysis into something real. With just one click, you can get an audio overview. It's like a private podcast summarizing your research, or even a video overview with slides. You can create study guides, quizzes for yourself, project timelines, detailed briefing docs, even visual aids like mind maps, all pulled directly and verifiably from your sources. But look, this isn't just theory. Let's talk about how this works in the real world. Take this quote. One user was trying to learn this really complex Docker documentation, and they used the audio overview first. It gave them a mental map of the whole system before they even got into the weeds. Another person used it to digest a super dense Tesla corporate report in just a few minutes, pulling out key stats without having to read hundreds of pages. That's a game changer. All right, I know what you're thinking. This all sounds amazing, but what's the catch? What's it going to cost? So let's get into the practical side of things, because NotebookLM does have both a free and a paid version. Honestly, the free plan is incredibly generous. You get 100 different notebooks and can ask 50 questions a day. For most students or casual users, that is way more than enough to get serious work done. But if you're a heavy-duty researcher or a professional analyst, that's where the Plus tier really makes a difference. you jump up to 300 sources per project and a whopping 500 queries a day. The paying tier, which is called NotebookLM Plus, isn't actually a standalone product. It's bundled into the Google One AI Premium subscription. That usually runs about $20 a month, but it also gets you access to their top-tier AI, Gemini Advanced, and a massive 2 terabytes of Google Drive storage. So it's a whole package deal. But let's do a quick reality check, because no tool is perfect. There are 3 key limitations to keep in mind. First, data privacy. Now, Google says your data isn't used for training their models, but if you're working with super sensitive corporate or personal info, it's something to think about. Second, it's a bit of a walled garden. It doesn't really connect with other apps. And third, while you can customize the output style, you can't really fine-tune the core model for highly specialized, jargon-heavy fields. So knowing those limitations, how do the power users, the pros, push this tool to its absolute limits? Well, there's this expert-level strategy that actually turns one of those limitations into a huge advantage for your own brain. It's called the Compression Architecture Framework. Yeah, it's a mouthful, I know, but trust me, the idea behind it is brilliant. It's a workflow designed to get around those source limits we talked about, while at the same time forcing you to build a much deeper, more connected understanding of your topic. Here's how it works. First, you use the AI to distill your sources down into these super dense, high-quality summary notes. Second, you take those notes and convert them into a brand new source document. Third, you delete the original files to free up space. And finally, you just repeat the cycle. You add new research and do it again. This isn't just a clever hack. By constantly compressing and re-summarizing the knowledge, you're actually using a process that science shows dramatically improves your own memory and understanding. So that brings us to the big question, doesn't it? When we have tools that can create this verifiable private intelligence based entirely on our own information, are we looking at the future of how knowledge work gets done? Is this how we're all going to learn, research, and create in the years ahead? It's a pretty powerful thought to end on.